It is 5:30. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Are there any public comments? There being none, I call this meeting to order. Roll call of members, please.
Dr. Reddas,
Here.
Ms. Williams,
Here.
Ms. Person West,
Here.
Ms. Temple,
Here.
Mr. Zagreski,
Here.
Mr. Steele,
Here.
Ms. Walkham.
Executive closed sessions per North Florida School District Policy 1.14 stating that private or closed discussions by the board may occur as part of a regular or special board meeting. Executive sessions may be held only for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of an employee, or to discuss matters of public punishment, if requested by the parent or legal guardian. No resolution, agreement, or motion considered in the executive session shall be legally binding unless the board reconvenes in public session and presents the item for vote of the membership. Further, Arkansas Code Title 25, Chapter 19, Section 106 states, the specific purpose of the executive session shall be announced in public before going into executive session. Therefore, please join me in the executive closed session for discussing the following matters: employment, appointment, promotion, or resignation of employees. We're back in session. We're moving on to number 4, action items, new business, 4.1 2021 school choice campaign proposal.
Madam President, members in our board, I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Dustin Barnes, as well as Ms. Robinson, I believe, who's here. Ms. Robinson, welcome. This is a proposal really to enhance our communication platform as we look to grow enrollment in the district. So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Barnes to introduce our guest.
All right, good evening, everybody. Dustin Barnes, Communications Coordinator for the district. So I'm glad to have Julie Robbins here. Julie is the Senior Director of Planning for Megan Holcomb Team SI. They're a marketing firm based in Little Rock, and so we had reached out to some other marketing firms to kind of send some proposals that could give us an idea of how they can help us through school choice. You know, school choice goes from January 4th through May 1st. School choice, you know, that's a law that was passed in 2015 that families can send their children to schools where they may not live. So if you're zoned in Pulaski County, you can, through school choice, come to the North Little Rock School District or whatever district you choose. So that's one way that we have, gotten new students and gotten students in our district. So we want to kind of amplify that and get some more students. So doing that through school choice. So we have Ms. Robbins here to present a proposal from Megan Holcomb, Team SI, about how we can increase enrollment through school choice. So
thank you, Mr.
floor is
Barnes.
yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Really appreciate Mr. Barnes reaching out to us and asking us to put something in front of you for consideration. All right, so as we understood from Mr. Barnes, the purpose of the school choice campaign would be to influence parents' decision-making to choose North Little Rock School District for their students. He did provide us with direction with regard to audience, geography, time frame, and ultimately desired outcome for the school district. And then that our role would be primarily to drive traffic to the North Little Rock School District website, where those students have, where those parents and students have a number of options on the website in terms of getting more information, filling out an application, etc. I'm going to hit the right button. We've proposed several tactics for consideration. One would be the use of video. Video is very important in the digital world now. Folks are very video oriented. We would prepare 2 30-second videos for the school district. We would use existing footage and photography that Mr. Barnes or others from within the school district may have taken that you all are using that gives us some consistency with imagery that others have already been seeing in the market for your school district. It is also a cost efficiency consideration for us to edit from existing footage and photography. We would overlay graphics, we would overlay with an original script and voiceover, but the actual imagery would be repurposed from your asset library. And the cost for producing these 2 videos, 30 seconds each, all inclusive from script all the way to through post-production, would be $6,000. Then we would use those 2 videos as well as 2 additional ads using static imagery, photography, and we would place advertising on Facebook. Audiences would be able to engage with those ads, make comments, give those heart or wow reactions or those thumbs up reactions. If they were to ask questions, the North Little Rock School District, Mr. Barnes, or others would have access to the links on those ads so you could interact with any questions or comments. We believe each month with a budget of $15.40 per month that we can reach a potential audience monthly for you on Facebook of 3,600 people with a daily reach of 1,138 folks. This would be a 5-month flight beginning in December and running through May. So school choice begins in January, but will begin kind of softening the market, as it were, in December. We would also like to take those two 30-second TV spots and put them on connected television. This is streaming television. This provides us with high viewability metrics for you. There is no skipping the ad. There is none of that sort of thing. So this would be folks who have cut their cords, as it were, and they're streaming their television. We would use both the 30-second spots. We would rotate them. We would also depend, to some extent, on the artificial intelligence of the platform. If one spot is performing better, it may get played a little bit more than the other. This would be a December through May flight, all 5 months, and that spend in total would be $3,630. And again, with both Facebook and connected TV, we are able to drill down very specifically with regard to geography, some demographics, particularly with regard to gender and age. So we will reach the folks that we want to reach with these spots. Reduces waste. We would also like to layer in streaming audio. Streaming audio using iHeart, Radio, Pandora, or the TuneIn apps give us both an audible and a visual opportunity. You can hear the ad, but then you can also see the banner on your desktop or on your mobile phone. We would produce an original audio spot for you, one 30-second spot with voice, an original script, or we could do two 15-second spots. Then we would also have the banner ad to go along with it. We recommend here a 2-month flight, March and April, to give those last couple of months a real punch, and a total spend there of $920 with potential impressions of 19,200. Then direct mail, so we're just going to keep layering in and trying to reach your audiences in the various different ways that they take in information. One postcard design and a one-time mail out. We have estimated if the quantity of the addresses is around $1,500, then the design and production and renting of a list, we believe we can do that for you for around $2,500 total. Would not include postage because we'd like to use your pre-sort school district indenture postage, but we would include a QR code on the postcard as well as your web address that would send people right onto your website. And let's layer in a little outdoor. We'd like to put your message, your school choice message, on billboards around the community for about $6,000. We think that we could get you what is called a remnant placement. These are boards that do not have contracts on them. We think that we could get about 8 of those. They might actually move around a little bit in the 2 months, which would expand your geography. They would move around within your geography, but it would expand how many, potentially how many impressions. Again, a 2-month flight, March, April. This overlays with the streaming audio 2-month flight because when folks are in their car, they're also seeing billboards, so we're getting that additional frequency. A spend of about $6,000 should get us 8 remnant billboards. Throughout the course of the campaign, we are going to monitor several key performance indicators with regard to the advertising we're pushing out. We are going to monitor impressions, how many times the ads are being shown, particularly with regard to CTV and Facebook. We are going to monitor engagements and interactions with those ads. Are people asking questions? Are they sharing the ads on Facebook, et cetera? Are they completing our CTV ads, which again, the completion rate on the CTV is very high 90s. We'll monitor the completion rate on the Facebook video ad as well. CTR we will monitor, that is click-through rate, how many folks are clicking on those ads to go to your website to the next step. We'll monitor website traffic to the registration page. We'll monitor time on website, how long folks are staying on your website, how many of those folks are new users, and how many are using our QR code from our direct mail. And then we'll monitor that throughout the entire 5 months, and we'll make recommendations for adjustments or course corrections as needed. Ultimately, we want to see an increased activity in your social media. We want to see increased web traffic and website traffic and activity on your website. We will measure conversions or actions for those who click on the new student registration link on your website, and then, of course, ultimately what that final number looks like in terms of enrollment for the coming school year. And then I've just put a slide in, and I believe it's in your packet, that gives you back in a little bit different format, but in a one-pager summary of the budget breakdown, what some of those line items include, and the budget total at $29,750. And that concludes my presentation to the board.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me about other schools that you've dealt? First and foremost, I'd like to make a statement.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's awesome, and that's what we need. Now, what are your other previous experiences with other districts?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you give us that?
MHP, Team SI, has been in the market here in Central Arkansas since 1972. We have worked with public schools, private schools, and institutions of higher education. Last year, I worked on a project for Little Rock School District. We are not currently engaged with Little Rock School District. We have also worked with the larger academies of Central Arkansas in recent, last year as it was beginning to launch. We've done work with some of the private schools in Little Rock particularly as well. And we've worked with higher education, several schools in the UA system, including North Little Rock's own Pulaski Tech, which we have a current engagement with. Those are just some of the examples in, say, the last several years or 10 to 15 years. As far as our complete history since 1972, I don't know that I could lay that out for you. I've been with the firm since 2003, but we have significant experience with education.
Thank you.
Ms. Angela Person-West?
I have no questions. I kind of it's not a kind of, I understand it because I've dealt with advertising agencies before and I'm familiar with Mangan Holcomb.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Temple?
Yes, I had just a couple. One is, you said course corrections. Is that part of this budget, or is there?
Yes, that's part of the budget.
Okay.
Let me go back. So the line item there that refers to project management at the very top, $500 a month for 5 months, $500 per month for 5 months. You'll see there that includes our monthly KPI report. So as we're monitoring those key performance indicators, if we find that one spot is working better on Facebook, then we might put more of your budget toward that particular ad. So that would be an example of a course correction. Or if we're not getting the impressions in a certain with the certain age group that we're targeting, we may make a course correction, maybe change out a photo, change out a headline, and serve that ad again and see if in fact that hits. So that is what I meant by course corrections. And yes, ma'am, it's included.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Gris? JT?
That works. I've got a couple of questions, but they're more for Mr. Barnes and Mr. Paluski. So the first one is, I don't see Mr. Stone here. I noticed in the presentation we were shooting for 200 plus school choice. Now, I should know this by now, but I remember back when we got out of the desegregation agreement and all that, you could opt out of school choice, then we were limited to legal transfer. And I believe LRSD, PCSSD, I thought that they all opted out because we tended to benefit from that. Are we getting school choice students today?
Yes.
We are getting those,
Yes.
and from all the surrounding districts?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I should probably know that, but I couldn't recall. The other question is to Mr. Barnes, and first of all, I like the presentation, I like your ideas, but my question is, did we consider using our NLRTV and or East programs to do some of this work? And the reason I ask that is because, and I get there's a difference between a professionally produced commercial and what our students would produce, but the students produce high quality stuff, and at the end of it, we can say a North Little Rock television production at the bottom of it, and it's like doubling down. Did we consider going that route instead of hiring outside help?
I have not. I do know that just, Mr. Seller, the students, just the time it would take it just wouldn't be feasible. I do
Okay.
not believe. I know his workload and his work schedule. I just didn't think it would be the best option.
All right. Well, I would ask to consider that in the future, but I will say that for $30,000, I know what we get for foundation funding. It would not take long to recoup that if we do increase our school choice transfers. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Mr. Steele?
Yes, just real quickly. Our kids, they do an excellent job in our studio. Just also to Mr. Paluski and Dustin, are you guys going to completely manage this? I mean, it looks like this is going to move very quickly. But if there needs to be a change or a shift, and you open to that with these gentlemen, and so they can make sure that we're hitting on the right points that we need to hit on in the district. Things change quickly.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's why we'll also meet with Mr. Barnes regularly. We'll make those reports, and we'll be in contact. We'll service the account in a way that will allow for changes as needed.
I also remember on last year, I think it was, I don't know, COVID has me kind of off. You did a good job on radio with KIPR, KOKY, Alice. I don't see that. Is that separate or?
I think Ms. Robbins kind of talked about the iHeartRadio, like the audio. What is it called? What do you call it?
Is that just the
Streaming audio.
online streaming?
So we would be placing ads on those apps, those streaming audio apps. I did not build into the budget activities for interviews, perhaps, for Mr. Barnes or others on the local radio stations. We can certainly revisit that, if that's what you mean when you're referencing the radio station.
Absolutely. I think your interview, I think, Ms. Superintendent, I think that was one of
Yes.
the first public interviews.
Broadway
a lot of people
Joe.
called me. Yeah, Broadway
Broadway
Joe. And that's
a good one.
That's free
It
of
is.
charge.
Yes.
And I would agree with you, Mr. Stone. Outside of that, getting our local radio stations is a huge advantage, and we're going to continue that, even if that's not part of this. We'll beat that in. Myself, I think Ms. Barker was on there as well. We'll certainly continue. And if I may, Madam Superintendent, Madam President, just to respond to Mr. Steele, Ms. Robbins, just a suggestion, kind of to Mr. Steele's point. Willingness to come back maybe in March and kind of share some of your data with us.
Happy to do
Here's
that.
what we've been learning midway, and
Happy
here's
to
how
do
we're
that.
adjusting based upon what we're learning on our data.
Happy to do that, absolutely.
Thank you.
And with the monthly reports, certainly Mr. Barnes can provide those as well.
That would be great. That might be, Mr. Barnes, in our weekly board reports that you would get in kind of real time each week. Good
I'll
idea.
entertain a motion.
Question? Oh, yeah.
But
Need a motion.
Madam President, I so move that we accept the proposal for the school choice campaign proposal.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we accept the 2021 school choice campaign proposal that's been presented. Is there any more discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Robinson. Nice to meet
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Next, we're down to 4.2, annual bus purchase.
I'll ask colleague Dr. Tyler to present on the annual bus purchase, and if Mr. Brown is also here, if we've got any financial questions related to that.
Good evening to Board President Dr. Redis, board members, and our Superintendent, Dr. Paluski. It's great to be before you all this evening for our annual bus purchase. The purpose of our annual bus purchase is to provide dependable transportation.
Yep, he's got it.
I got the clicker. So that's our purpose. Our rationale, pretty much before my arrival, we had vehicles on the road way too long. And since I've been here, we've tried to establish a trend to replenish our fleet in every 14 to 17 years instead of 35. One thing I do want to highlight, this year we're going to try to get 3 14-passenger buses so we won't have to get CDL drivers to drive those buses. For an example, we have cheerleaders, golf, homeless, foster. These are small quantity of students, and as you all know, there's a national shortage of bus drivers. So we thought it good to invest in 3 smaller ones that we don't have to get CDL drivers. Here's the breakdown of our purchase request. Summit bus sales, there are 2 77 passengers. These are kind of like the ones that we've been getting on a yearly basis. One of those is $103,975. And you multiply that times, we're trying to get $270,950. That's from Summit, and Masters Transportation is a different vendor. But they were able to rescue us. There's a problem with manufacturing when it comes to the 14 passengers. The chassis was rare. COVID was causing problems, but they had them, and so they kind of rescued us. We're looking to get 3 of those 14 passenger route buses at $70,205 a piece. Multiply that times 3 is $210,615. Total of $418,565. The buses also need the camera system to go in it so we can monitor our fleet remotely and also provide administrators with footage that they need when there's an issue on the bus. So there are 2 4-camera systems that will go into 77 passengers, and the 3 camera systems will go in the 14 passengers. The Armor Cloud is just the place that we use to do our GPS, and then the shipping is $239, all totaling $14,365.90. The total purchase amount is $443,865.90 with the bus purchase and the camera system. And that's pretty much it. The rest that you have are just specs and mechanical information that we have. Any questions?
You have any questions? Bill?
No questions.
JD?
You said at purchasing 4 to 5 a year, we will replenish our fleet every 14 to 17 years. What's the recommended, how long do they recommend having a bus run? Is it certain miles or is it a certain number of years?
Miles,
What's the expected lifetime?
The state keeps up with that. When you get into like 19, 20 years, you start running into repairs that will cost more than a new bus. Like, for an example, we have a bus now, the repair is close to $40,000. So when you look at that and versus having a new bus with everything under warranty, then that's 19 to 20 years.
19 or 20
Yes,
years is where we need to shoot for. So,
Yes, sir.
so we get right under that. Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's all I have.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Ms. Temple?
I was just trying to remember, how much did we spend last year? Do you remember?
Around the same amount.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Person West?
I don't have any questions or comments, believe it or not. I mean, we gotta have buses to get the kids to school.
Ms. Williams?
Mr. Brown, how are we paying for these buses? Okay. Okay, you tell me about operation, but can we afford it at this time?
Yes, it's in the budget. Yes, sir.
There you go. Thank you. Very good.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President?
Go
Oh,
for it.
on.
You go first.
Madam President, I move that we go ahead and accept Dr. Tyler's proposal for the buses.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second that we accept Mr. Tyler's presentation on the annual bus purchases. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted.
Thank you all very kindly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
We're down to employment and personnel.
Madam President, members of our board, the superintendent recommends the employment of personnel as discussed in executive closed session.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I so move we accept the superintendent's recommendation for employment.
Second.
There can be no discussion on personnel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, any opposed, no. The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to go in a workshop.
Second. I so move that we adjourn for the workshop.
Second.
We're ready for the workshop.
Okay.
Come on down.
Madam President, if I may, I would, before Mr. Beckett gets started, I do want to officially welcome Dr. Tori Hooper, our Deputy Superintendent, who's with us, who started yesterday officially. So she's now a charging wildcat, so she's with us. So I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Get you out of there.
Congratulations.
Oh, good, good.
And with that, our first item is school board election zones, term limits, and the new law, and certainly needs no introduction, but the famous Jay Beckett, our legal counsel and attorney. Welcome, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski, Madam President, members of the board. Good to see all of you.
Hello.
How can I help?
Hurry up and go.
Pardon me?
Hurry up and go. 2 hours.
Hurry up. And I say we're good to go. Everything we've done tonight is legal.
Just
Oh. We really do have questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think and I spoke with Mr. Beckett, I knew there were some changes in the law as it relates to school board election zones, and I think Mr. Beckett was just Mr. Brown and I have worked with him and his colleagues based upon the April 2020 census data, and I know, based upon that, do we have to rezone our election zones or not? And he's going to address that as well. And he's also going to talk about board member term limits, just to kind of give us a clarification and then certainly open discussion.
Yeah, so with the governor has just announced a special session for next week. There's a possibility that the operative Arkansas statute that requires districts, unless they're exempt, to adjust their zones if they're not substantially equal, and then requiring board members to run if their zones have been adjusted. This law may get tweaked next week. We'll see if it does. If it does, and they put an emergency clause in there, then I may be back later in the month or in January. But as of right now, our sense is that it's not really mandated that the board adjust its zones or redraw them, because, there is some variation, but it's not real significant. And, the question is, the law says substantially equal voting populations in the zones, but the law does not define what substantially equal is. So that's a judgment call. I think in our case, we've had a history in this district of having robust minority participation on the board. I think the likelihood of having an issue with the board not redrawing or adjusting the zones this time around, I think the board could very well make that decision, and it'd be completely legal to do so. So that's really my take on complying with Arkansas code regarding redrawing zones to make sure they're substantially equal. There is some variation. As I recall, I think it's as high as like 10% in a couple of the zones, meaning the variation from the 2010 census versus now, and the comparison with other zones. There are 2 zones that have 10%, but the other ones are 3%, 5%. And kind of the benchmark a lot of demographers look at is like 10%. And so you're right there on a couple of the zones, but I just don't think it warrants I think we can justify not redrawing the zones.
Okay.
So out of clarity, that means that we wouldn't all have to run again next year.
That's correct.
that being the case, the four of us that just ran, what would our term be?
Okay, so that's kind of the second piece of what we need to look at. And, you know, there's no mechanism in the Arkansas Code for a school district board to adjust, you know, term expirations in order to comply with the explicit provision in the Arkansas Code that requires, you know, term expirations to be staggered so that, you know, only no more than two board members are running in any one election. So my sense is, and I don't know, it's not a very complicated process. We just need to figure out what the remaining lengths of the terms are for the board members who didn't run, because the four board members who did run, you've got 3-year terms, so they're going to expire, you know, 3 years from now. So there were other 3 board members. We need to figure out when your terms expire. And then what I think we do is we have the 4 board members who just ran. We would put 4 lots in a hat with numbers on them representing the lengths of the terms, so that we have, you know, appropriately staggered terms. And then the 4 board members who just ran draw lots to determine what the length of your term is. And we think that's legal, because there is no statutory mechanism for doing it, but that is a reasonable mechanism, and that is the mechanism that is used if we had to run all board members because of redrawing of zones. Okay, so we think that would be legal.
So are we saying we're gonna stay at 3 years, or would we have to go to the 5 years?
Well, I mean, you know, the law as currently written is you know, you can have 3 to 5 year terms, and the board by policy has decided to have 3-year terms. If you wanted to change that, then you could do that. But I think we need to do that before people ran for election.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's start at this end. Mr. Steele?
Well, thank you, Madam President. So with that being said, you officially reconfused me. I thought earlier today I understood it. So if we do decide to draw lots, then what will those terms be for the 1 through 4 people who would have to draw?
4 people who just ran.
Yes.
Okay. So that would depend on the length of the remaining number of years on the other 3 board members.
Okay.
Okay, the ones that didn't have to run. Okay, and it's just basically just a mathematical determination of figuring out, all right, so we've got zone 1. I mean, and I don't have all that data in front of me, but like say zone 1, let's say zones 1, 2, 3, and 4 just ran. Okay, so they've got 3 years left. Okay, zone 5 has 2 years left. Zone 6 has 2 years left. Zone 7 has 1 year left.
Okay.
So zones 1 through 4 draw lots, so that next year we've got 2 board zones up. The year after that we have 2 board zones up. The year after that we have 2 board zones up.
Okay.
Okay, that's the calculation.
And on the redistricting, if we decide not to, is it all or none, or if there is an issue in one area of the city that we want to correct, could we as a board address that?
Certainly. My advice is, I'm saying you don't have to, but if the board's will was to address that, then you could do that. And, you know, that's another thing, you know, the law on this, Senator, is, you know, as clear as mud, as they say. But we've got a number of other districts in the state that we're representing and advising, and like they have like a couple of districts, one is like Searcy, one is Bryant, there are others. They're adjusting like 2 of 5 or 2 of 7 zones, and the adjustments to those zones, because of the way their zones are configured, at least the ones that have deviations and need to be redrawn, they're not, those 2 zones that are being redrawn aren't affecting any other zones.
Okay.
So those districts are running the 2 board members whose zones are being affected by the redrawing, and not the other 5.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
All
Thank
right.
you.
JT?
So the engineer in me finds it very problematic that they didn't offer specific metrics as to, so that, I'll just throw this out there, we need more math teachers and engineers in our legislature. But they wouldn't want me there anyway. Anyway, So when you said the numbers 10% and 3%, was that deviation from the average or changes from 10 years ago?
Deviation from the average.
Okay, and so our biggest deviation from that is 10%, and you feel like we're safe. I just want to.
Yes.
I'd rather be above board and make sure we're covering all our bases. If you feel like we're comfortably safe, then I'm fine going with your recommendation.
Well, I mean, there's risk, and I'm not saying, but there's risk on both sides of this, because, you know, you've got risk of somebody that would be not on the board that wants to run for a board seat and thinks a board seat should have been redrawn, and therefore that person should be up for election. And then I'm not saying anybody on this board would do that, but there have been lawsuits in the past where
Right.
board members whose zones are being redrawn, and the sitting board member does not think the board zones should be redrawn. You know, potentially that board member could file a lawsuit alleging that, you know, the district's in violation of the statute
Mhm.
by redrawing the zone. So
Okay.
it's, you know, between a rock and a hard place kind of a deal.
Right, we just have to make our best call. All right,
Exactly.
that's all I've got. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I have any questions.
Ms. Williams?
Oh, she just wants me out of here.
Ms. Person West?
I don't have any, I was just been wondering how all of this was gonna shake out, but I don't have any questions per se.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for having me. Y'all have a good rest of the meeting.
We'll see you after they convene.
I do have one
We'll see you
question.
next month.
Yes, ma'am.
When do we have to decide? Like-
So your election is your election's
in
in
November.
November,
Uh-huh.
so your deadlines kind of start in May.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're good.
You gonna
Thank
play
you
in the
so much.
upcoming bowl? You got it in you?
I'm just enjoying actually seeing a winning team. How's the Hoopster doing?
Good,
Yourself?
good, thank you.
Good.
Thank
He was a
you.
great
Thank you,
football
Mr.
player.
Beckett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, he was a great football player.
I heard, and I heard it runs in the family.
Oh, yes.
Madam Superintendent, members of our board, our next presentation is on attendance trend data of our employees. And this is something, and I welcome Mr. Smith here to kind of do an overview, but this is something that we've started to look at our employee attendance. And Mr. Smith's going to give us a very brief overview of our data.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski, Madam President, members of the board. So as Dr. Paluski alluded, this is over our attendance trend data for the last fiscal year and then this fiscal year up to date as far as November 12th goes. And so with that being said, the purpose of the presentation is to inform the board and the community of these two fiscal year trend data and seek ideas and feedback to transform the North Little Rock School District to meet the needs of all students. Our goal over the next 3, 5, and 10 years respectively, we'd like to see a 5%, 7%, and 10% reduction in gap of our current attendance data. And so I apologize, board, the presentation is very number heavy, but we'll work through it. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to do my best to kind of break everything down, but if we want to go into the specifics, then I'll kind of let you guys take me there. So as far as the attendance codes go, for our 2020-2021 attendance data, which is all of last fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th, you can see up at the top, each column represents a different attendance code. So sick, personal, vacation, bereavement, school business, professional development, military leave, jury duty, leave without pay, other, COVID, ADE COVID. And I'll explain that ADE COVID column here in a moment. But we break, this is from our cycle report, and so our cycle report is what's submitted to the state. And it's, I believe this is from, Mr. Brown, help me out. What cycle report? Is it cycle 6 that we submit this?
I think it might be cycle 7.
Cycle 7. Okay. So cycle 7. And as you can see, it breaks down by building site. And we go through and it's the left column distinguishes between classified, certified, and teacher. And it totals on the right side, and it gives totals for each building site. And then you can see there is a grand total for each column here at the bottom. And it shows the grand total on the bottom right of total number of days for last fiscal year where a attendance code was logged in eFinance. And so some of the high points in regards to this are located here. Sick days, 13,200, and this is for all employees. Personal days is 2,018 days. Vacation days is 2,020 days. Professional development days is 1,394 days. COVID-19 days are 3,057 days, and our grand total with all of our different attendance codes is that 23,419 that we discussed in the bottom right corner. I want to stop here for a second. Are there any questions before I go on? Yes, ma'am.
How does, I was talking to you, how does this, we only have 170 teaching days in a year, you know, academic year. And then I'm talking about, just forget about this. I know this was during pandemic. But how does that, talking to you professionally, how does that affect our children educationally with that? Because I read both reports, but what is your conversation on that with the days?
Yes, ma'am. So any days we don't have teacher direct instruction with our students, that's taking away from their instructional time that they would normally receive. I believe at the secondary level it's 6 hours and 15 minutes, and at the elementary level it's 6 hours and 25 minutes. And so that is direct correlation day by day from our teachers' face-to-face instruction with our students.
Okay, I understood about the pandemic, you know, when we had the
Yes, ma'am.
2021. But then when I looked at the 2022, that's what I was saying. It's, I know we get 10 days, and then there are those who will take days regardless. But I was worrying about the academics for our children. How can they possibly be educated?
Well, we're going to discuss, so I wanted to stop here, but we'll continue on and we'll go through this fiscal year and see where we are. And then I did some extrapolations as well. So if we continue to trend the way we are through this year, we'll discuss kind of where we'll end up at the end of this fiscal year if everything continues on, and I'll discuss my rationale. And then at the very end, we'll discuss what I have researched and what I have discussed with my peers as far as some of those markers that are leading to this absenteeism and the things that are transpiring.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at this point?
What is our total number of employees?
It's a little over 1,300. All right, let me continue on. Okay, this is just kind of an overview of eFinance running our attendance data right now. And so in regards to this, this is from July 1 of 2021, which is the start of our fiscal year this year. And then we've pulled this data November 12th, 2021, so just a couple weeks ago. And what I've done is this is again by building site. And I have, it dives down a little more specifically whenever we're looking in eFinance, but the attendance codes are different, but it reads much of the same way. And so the building sites are on the left. The attendance codes used are manual docking, automatic docking, sick leave, personal days.
But if you don't mind, I hate to interrupt you, but so that I'm reading this correctly, these are in hours, is that correct? So like when I look at Amboy Elementary and I go across the sick leave daily, I'm seeing 193.3.
No, sir. So
Or is
this is in days, but whenever you get into the decimal, based on our 8-hour workday, that is how you correlate those decimals. And so the decimals are showing the percentage of hours in a day that the individual is absent.
I get that, but explain that 193 number. Is that total number of sick leave days that have been taken at Amboy?
Yes.
Because the column is daily, that's why I got confused. But that's counting days. That's not
Yes.
each day. Okay.
Correct.
I want to make sure I was looking at that information right.
Yes, sir.
But that is through, you have it correlate, excuse me, but you have it correlated between, this is as of July 1st to November 12th.
Correct.
That culmination.
Yes, sir. Vacation pay, jury duty, school business, bereavement leave, leave without pay, suspended with pay, suspended without pay, and NLR COVID leave pay. And then these are our grand totals at each school site. And it shows again that very bottom right box would be the bottom right in the original cycle report, the 23,000. So that's the total number of days where we are at with all things considered thus far this year. So again, hitting the high points. This is 4,793 sick days, 757 personal days, 924 vacation days, 936 professional development days, and 487 COVID days, with again 7,737 being the grand total, all of our columns combined. And so I pulled out some of what I consider the high point information. From 2020 and 2021, but last year, whenever we had a full fiscal year of data, we've already shared these numbers, and I've already shared the total for this fiscal year as well up to date as far as November 12th. And the way I did this math, this is just a projection, but this is extrapolated times 3. So going through November gives us about 4 months. That's 4 months out of our 12-month fiscal year. If we multiply everything all the way out, then that red line would give you where we would end up in regards to comparing the end of this year, if we trend, to last year. So comparing the yellow and the red would be an appropriate comparison if that projection continued on for the rest of the fiscal year. So you can see we've got a little uptick in pretty much everything with the exception of COVID. I think it's important to note too, school business and professional development are factored in there. We have been able to open that up more this year. There was quite a bit of it on lockdown, and so we did not participate in a great deal of the professional developments and things that were offered just because of the state of affairs we were in with the COVID pandemic. And so the state has released some of those things, and Dr. Paluski has allowed some of that professional development to not only come onto campus, but other people to attend conferences as well. The factors to consider, I mean, COVID-19 is real, everybody. We have a conversation pretty much monthly about this, but professional development was minimal. The mental health aspect of our staff, students, people that are caring for others and their families, family care. The social emotional aspect we've hit on as a central office, and I have discussions weekly with our staff about the state of mind and state of affairs that we are still dealing with in the pandemic, and then just the work environment. Last year was a very, very tough year. This year, we have a lot of our students back and things of that nature, but we've presented attendance data, we've had the conversations with you as a board. There have been aspects that are just different as far as what our staff is having to deal with whenever you compare it to pre-COVID. And so those are very active conversations we're having as a central office team, but those things are kind of bubbling to the top, is a very good way to say it. And there's a lot of people that are very tired, and there's a lot of people that are struggling, and it's a nationwide trend. I mean, that's the data I've looked at. I pulled this information from nationwide websites. Frontline Education, which is one of the sub-providers, they have a whole page that I will put in my board report for this week that kind of outlines the state of affairs as far as teaching and education is going. And there's a lot of issues that individuals are having on a personal level. And so with that being said,
Well, I know that we're struggling with subs as well, so I'm like Ms. Williams, it concerns me that we don't have
Yes.
teachers in the classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
If you had a magic wand, what suggestions do you have?
There's the conversation about incentivizing attendance, having that. Some people, some HR directors are exploring that. We've done that as a board this year, and as a school district. You guys have approved the COVID pay, and that's a step in the right direction. I think since that happened last month, we're going to see, if the board will remember, last year, we didn't pass that till the end of the year. And so a lot of that attendance had already been set. With incentivizing it the way we did, and the push from Dr. Paluski to get it out there, I think we're going to see some good feedback from that, because as discussed last board meeting, that's potentially $2,700 if you have perfect attendance through the student contact days.
Ms. Williams?
Very good report.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown, what concerns me, all of these absentees and how we have to pay the sub company. And I understand last year we almost had to pay them $2 million for sub, or close to $1 million. And then, and here in your report, we're spending money like that because some teachers get 10 days and take them, people just take them. And they don't realize the impact it could have on them getting raises if we're spending all of this money on subs. And how much money did we actually spend, just this semester, if they would give us a clear? I'm not talking about the severe pandemic we were in.
We average around $1.4 to $1.5 million each year for
Ooh.
cost of subs.
Yes.
See, that's money. And I know that you working on it, but to me, I'm not counting last year because everybody was sick with school. You all just gave me a good report from July 1 to November. And to hear this amount, teachers want raises but won't come to work. It puts us in a bind if we have to pay a sub company $1.5 million a year. That's heavy. But good report. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for that, Ms. Williams. And that's why we're beginning to look at this, because we know that there are legitimate reasons to be out. There are health issues, those are legit. And I think what we're starting to look at and question is, what are our policies? What are our procedures in place as relates to leave? That's one component, looking at incentivizing. But you bring up a really good point, and that is every time we don't have a viable certified teacher in a classroom is taking away from the instructional minutes and quality instruction. And so when we also dig in a little bit deeper, we see often Fridays and Mondays are often where we're having a lot of problems with substitutes. And I think you bring up a good point. That's what we're looking at, is trying to correlate these different pieces of data to try to better understand that impact on instruction. Okay. So actually in executive team, we look at this just about every other week. Schools are now looking at it, principals are now, and everybody's asking more questions and inquiring about the big picture of understanding instructional loss of time.
Yes. 170 teaching days, and the kid doesn't see the teacher but 50 days.
And if I just may, just the other thing I do, because as I was listening to some teachers the other day, and I am concerned about this, and that is the social emotional well-being of our teachers. It's still hard. It's still difficult. And so I just want to make it public. We just put out a survey to our faculty, employees, of looking at potentially our school calendar for this the remainder of second semester. Do we build in some half days to give teachers some time for social, emotional, mental well-being, give them some extra time for planning, give them extra time for grading? I think we've got to be looking at that and give some relief to our teachers. So we're seeking their feedback. Would they be in favor of this once a month, maybe on a Wednesday, early release days? to try to better take care of our teachers. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. We might be coming based upon that data of looking at adjustments to our calendars for teachers.
How would we make up that time? I think it's a great idea, but that time's got to be made up somehow.
So that's what we're working on. We've already spoken with ADE, and we want to make sure that we meet the requirements that we're not. And I believe that we have enough. I know Mr. Smith has worked on this with ADE. So we're trying to get their feedback. We're making sure that we're in compliance with the law, and we believe we've got the feedback that we will be based upon that. Great question.
Excellent report.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith, real quick, you may have went over this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. Here you had, one of those sheets had the COVID pay and then the ADE COVID pay.
Yes, ma'am, I did not touch on that.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize. So
I was wondering, did
no.
I miss it somewhere?
ADE COVID pay was on a reimbursement
Okay.
basis, and so what I need to do is I need to embed that in the report that what we were reimbursed for. And so that did not hit the cycle report, which is why you see that column of 0, because it was done in conjunction with after the fact.
Okay.
And so that's why that report did not reflect that
Okay.
data.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The hot topic, COVID-19.
So, Madam President, members of our board, I will invite up our famous nurse, our
Nurse.
COVID-19 nurse, which is Nurse Green, who's done a fabulous job with her colleagues, and Nurse Stuckey, and Ms. Alexander. I don't know if you're going to join her side by side. It's good. But we wanted to, we want, just as a very brief update, but we wanted to bring you an update on our COVID-19 numbers, kind of what's happening. I know there are some districts around us around masks, and they put a time limit on that. But we're going to share that data. I would certainly recommend at this point, and based upon this discussion, we can talk about it, of continuing to wear masks based upon the data and what we're learning. But we'll have Nurse Green share our current data with us.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with just the parent survey and the employee survey that was sent out. My data that is on here is not what we have. It closed out today, I believe, Dustin. So with parents, we had 1,752 responses that responded to the survey, and 935 for mask and 817 against. So then when we look, that is a 93 to 81%. 93% for, 81% against. Then when we look at the employees, we only had 672 employees respond. We had 402 for mask and 270 against. And that's about a 40 to 27% against. If we look at our data, of course, this was at the beginning of Thanksgiving week when I've posted that. So as of this afternoon, we have got 4 positive staff. That's still the same, and we have 2 on quarantine. When you look at students, we have 21 positive and 20 who are quarantined. So that's a total of 25 positive for the district and 23 quarantined. Of course, we all know. So today for Pulaski County, we had 76 new cases just for Pulaski County. And of course, the state was 1,226 positive, which is a huge increase even from September.
Yes.
That is a large jump. Of course, we know a lot of this is Thanksgiving, the holidays. We're all gathering with families. It's getting cooler outside. We're not playing outside, of course. You know, the last 2 days it's been 70 degrees and very nice, but it's been cold, and so we're not spending the time outside like we did. We're coming inside and gathering more, which is a concern. So, and you can look at our data trend. We have done very well. This starts back from September and goes all the way to I can't read the number, but I want to say at the end, is that?
It's the 22nd.
Is that the
22nd.
22nd? I was like, I can't see.
before you move on from this, I was going to ask if Mr. Staggers would actually pull up our current report, but I won't do that. But
Oh, you can.
well, if he doesn't mind, because I think it's very telling,
Uh-huh.
and there's two pieces that are very telling off of the website. I'll talk about it while he's pulling it up. The first is that you see that spike in the last 10 days where our numbers are like tripled, right? It's ballpark.
Correct.
But our quarantines are not going up like they would have, and that's because we still can operate under the rules where if the students are masked, they don't have to quarantine.
Correct. And they also changed from 6 feet, we're now at 3 feet or less.
Okay, so even we can see it there on the right-hand side, how much of a jump that is. That's higher than we've been all year. But our quarantine numbers are still relatively low because of how we're operating the district today.
Yes, and if you look at the blue spikes, those are the quarantines due to school exposures. Those are mainly at elementary schools for pre-K and kindergarten and first grade who they can't help but not wear their mask appropriately. And so we always, on the air of caution, we are going to quarantine those who are not wearing their mask appropriately. So that's where those spike. And you can see we kind of went for a little while with no school close contacts, and then had a little jump for a couple of weeks, and now we're back down.
Well, masks are still keeping our kids in class, right?
Correct.
Long story short. Okay,
Correct.
thanks. I'll let you get back to your regularly scheduled stuff. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to vaccinations. Of course, our staff, we provided those, at the end of last year, beginning of last year in January and on. That participated here was about 55%. We still do not, I don't know what the percentage is for the whole district at this time. We've had several clinics for our 12 to 18-year-old students last semester and right before school started and at the end of last year. We have only about 0.2% who have participated on our on-site clinics. Right now, we have done one clinic for the age 5 to 11, and that was at Boone Park, Crestwood, Glenview, Meadow Park, and 7th Street. It went well. 251 students were vaccinated that day, and that equals out to about 0.1% of that student population. Tomorrow, we're holding our first dose clinic for Amboy, Indian Hills, Lakewood, Pikeview, Ridge Road, and the 11-year-olds that are at the 6th grade campus. And as of right now, it's about 300 kids that we'll get tomorrow.
Are the parents not reporting if they take their child to their private doctors?
No, but when we pull immunizations from WebIZ for students who need them, if it's on there, we are putting it into eSchool so that we have it for our knowledge. And some parents, they send it to school, some don't. I've gotten several emails where a parent will ask me, hey, do I need to send my card to the school and stuff, but the high school has done really well about putting theirs in. Now that we're getting the clinics through at the elementary level, we will get those put in also. And so second doses, we're gonna have a second dose for the first group that had it on the 18th, 19th, right before we got out for school, or Thanksgiving break. That one's gonna be December 10th. And then the ones that we're doing tomorrow, their 21 days is gonna fall during Christmas break. So, but you can get your second vaccination 21 to 45 days. So we are gonna have it January 7th for when they come back. But if parents want to go, we're gonna work something out where they can go and get the second dose if they wanna get it before then. And we've also worked with the health department, has reached out, and they do wanna provide the pediatric doses. So we may be able to have some more during the spring session just to kinda, let's do it again, just like we did with the high schools.
Are we notifying them by email and paper?
Yes.
Both, okay.
Yes. We sent flyers home, everything went home, and I know emails, each school even put stuff out on their Facebook page. So we hit every single student.
Okay.
That was 5 and 11, between 5 and 11. So, but we're hoping we can work something out with the health department also to provide for the spring semester. Test to
President.
Stay program. Go ahead.
Yeah, are the adult employees, are they obligated to tell us?
No.
Or is that HIPAA?
Correct. And when, I think we've been trying to figure out a way to get that data without violating anything, and we cannot. We cannot ask an employee if they're vaccinated. Now, if they choose to tell us, that's one thing. But, and I think, Nurse Green, and correct me if I'm wrong, from I think one of my superintendent's meetings, the health department was trying to correlate the data of those that have been vaccinated so they could get that information to schools so we would have a more accurate number of our employees, because she's
Yes.
given the data that this is only ones that we've given, not if you've gone out on your own, and where we're trying to get a better. And do you have any update on that, Nurse Green?
No,
That
they
data's
did
still
not say anything on
out
our
of
POC
timeline?
meeting. Yes, there's still no.
But to your point, Mr. Steele, we're trying to get a more accurate number.
Okay, there is a program, of course, I'm sure you all heard Governor announce it, it's been a few months, they did a little trial, it's called Test to Stay program. This is all voluntary for parents and staff if they want to participate, but in order to participate, you can kind of see what it excludes. If you are wearing your mask appropriately, both the positive and the close contact, that excludes them from the Test to Stay. We do not consider that a close contact, okay? Also, if somebody is unvaccinated and they've been positive within the 90 days, they would not be able to participate in that 90-day time frame because they've had the virus and for 90 days we're good. Then a fully vaccinated person would not participate. So this is for someone like our pre-K kids, kindergarten, first grade, or even some of the older kids, our special needs classes, where they cannot wear a mask appropriately, they're unvaccinated. We can test them during their quarantine period. They would be able to remain at school. And so 10-day quarantine, you're looking at them being at school at least for 7 days. So the nurse would test every single morning, give them a rapid test. If it's negative, they're going to go back to class. If it's positive, then we'll take our steps that we normally do. But this is for staff and students. They have to be asymptomatic. So if we deem somebody a close contact and, well, they've got symptoms, we're not going to be able to test to stay. They're going to have to go home. So we're working on protocols and everything. I've submitted the CLIA waiver to the Arkansas Department of Health and have ordered the supplies from Arkansas Department of Health, and then I'm going to have to get the nurses trained because it's going to take a lot for the nurse. If you think about it, if you have 10 kids that participate in this, that's 7 days that nurse has to every morning test them before they can go to the classroom. But we're going to be able to keep these kids in school.
Is it the same test? Oh.
Yes.
So the home kit that I have, and may or may not have used in the last week, is not nearly as
It's not nearly as
bad. Are
Right.
these tests the same way? So just to be long story short, you don't have to shove the thing up into your brain. You can
It's
just
not gonna go all the
swab.
way, but we are gonna have to go up a little higher than the NARES. You know,
Okay.
some of them you can just go right here in the NARES,
Mhm.
but this is gonna have to go up just a little bit higher, but it's not gonna go all the way up
Okay,
and back
so
into
it
the
won't be that horrible
nasopharynx.
experience every morning for the kids. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I was like, that's gonna be a little traumatized.
Just talking about
I was traumatized.
It's traumatizing no
I
matter
thought I
what.
was gonna have to go to counseling.
Since we're recording, the question was asked, what if you have health problems or religious beliefs? How do you go about filling out the form and applying for that?
So what we'll do is once we get everything and all the nurses trained and set, we will send a consent form. We'll go home with every single student. They will have to fill it out, get it turned in, it will have to stay on file in that school building, and they do not have to do, parents do not have to do this for their children. This is just something we want to offer for those ones who want their children to still be at school.
I mean, the mask mandate that we
Oh.
have now.
You're referring to a waiver
Yes.
to the mask?
Yes.
So the
Which we have
waiver,
those.
they have to have a medical documentation. That's all we have to have.
And who do they turn it into?
They can turn it into their school nurse.
And the principal to
And-
keep
and
the.
the principal, yes.
Okay.
Oh, he's so happy.
I am.
I just want to say, first, I want to commend you for your work when the other head nurse had to leave.
Thank you.
You have done a phenomenal job, and I appreciate the numbers being down, that you are really working hard, and I appreciate the report you're giving to the superintendent so that our stakeholders can actually see the data, because that's a good feeling for us, that we are concerned about our children, our staff, you know, everybody. And it's because of you all's work, all the nurses' work, that I know that these numbers are down, that you all are very observant and very caring. And as a board member, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We do appreciate you, and, you can appreciate, nobody likes to wear a mask every single day.
Day.
However, that has been proven that they work. And so,
Correct.
I know it's a little bit tough, because I have to sometimes remind my niece that's 7 to pull your mask over your face, pull it over your nose, but eventually, hopefully, everything subsides. But I am definitely happy as far as seeing the low numbers, and just, all of us are charged with keeping it down,
Correct.
especially with the 3rd variant.
I'm wondering, are you keeping track of anything else? Like, I know RSV was really up. Are you keeping track of any of those things?
I'm not following it wholeheartedly, but yes, I do know when there's a spike. I keep in touch with some of the nurses in PICU and at Children's, just to kind of see what's out there. We've just talked to an APRN the other day that there is a virus that's going around that mimics all the symptoms of COVID, and it lasts about 2 weeks, because I've been asking, because I'm having people who are getting tested, who are negative, but have every single symptom, and, but everything else is negative for them. So
Okay.
there's definitely many other things that are out there, and I do keep in contact with different medical providers to get their opinions.
Okay. And one other thing, what are you doing with like natural immunity because if you've had it, I mean, I know they're saying 90 days, but studies are showing it's lasting a lot longer. Are you
Correct.
counting that as like a vaccinated person?
Just for 90 days is all we can.
Okay.
And we can't accept like an antibody. If you go and have your antibody done and checked and it shows, yes, you've had it, but we have no clue, well, when was that infectious period? So that's why they just follow that 90-day period, and that is all we can follow. I mean, I've been positive, and I know my immunity did. I think I didn't get my vaccination until April, because I wanted to make sure everybody in the district got theirs before I did, because I knew I had been positive.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, the CDC and everybody is just saying 90 days, and that's what we have to follow.
Okay.
Are we gonna do a flu vaccine?
We've done flu vaccine
Been-
clinics
Okay.
at every school. Turned out very well.
I just have a clarifying question, Madam President, and just to make sure I have direction. When we put our mask mandate together, we didn't put a time frame on it that other districts did. We said we were going to monitor our data and come back. If the board wishes for me to come back to go in a different direction, let me know. If you don't and want us to come back maybe in another couple months to do another data sharing after we learn some more, see where we are, revisit this, I'll be happy to take that direction that you want to provide me.
Madam President. So everybody in this room knows how I'm going to vote. That said, there is a group out there that is lawyering up to try to force and getting a petition to try to force us to take a vote. I would like to avoid that if possible. That's my personal preference, is that we do bring this before the board and let us vote on it at a meeting, just to say that we discussed it and made a move to keep it in place, or whatever the board decides. I don't think there's any reason to stop doing what we're doing, but I would like to avoid the situation where we're forced to have a vote. That's my personal opinion, but it's the will of the board as to how we move forward.
I'm just not sure. Could you explain how we avoid that?
Well, there's a group that like
Yeah, I
Pulaski
understand
County.
that part.
Well, I'm just saying, Dr. Paluski could bring that to us at the regular board meeting
Just
this
have a
month
vote on
and put it in as an action item and say, my recommendation is to continue this, and we take a vote on it. I have
Fair.
faith that we'll do
Fair.
the right thing, but I think
Fair
that
enough.
keeps us from getting, and is a good faith way to keep our community, that we're continuing to take this seriously.
Good, thanks.
Can we put it on the next agenda?
Absolutely. We'll put the resolution, and then what my recommendation will be, we'll put that on the agenda for the regular board meeting. Then you can formally take a vote to that recommendation or another one. So I think it's a good suggestion. Yes, sir.
All right, I have faith in this board, but everybody gets a vote, so.
Okay. Sounds like a
Mr.
plan.
Zakreski, let me ask you a quick question on that. Is it that this particular group wanting us to go ahead and revisit that subject? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
It's kind of like-
Pulaski County, as I understand it, they had a petition that forced them to place it on their agenda and discuss it.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
simply avoiding that difficulty. I have actually spoken to 2 people who are considering a similar thing in the North Little Rock School District, and discussed it with them and explained my reasoning for why I believe masks should be in place, and that was, a discussion that we had. But I felt like if we were proactive and put it on our agenda and discussed it and took a vote, it would simply avoid that contention and
I got you.
avoid a spectacle.
Thank you, because I didn't look at it like that, but that's a great point.
I'll be happy to put that on there, Madam President.
Awesome.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
y'all very
Green.
much.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
That's it. Y'all have a great evening.
Miss Alexander, what's your part?
I just came to support her.
Hey, we through?
Y'all have a good evening.
That's what you with the full board. Those pictures, those full guys.